Hello. Welcome to the Back to the Future watch along. I'm David Schumann, host of the VHS Revolution show. And I just realized that the light behind me is on. So, 1 second. All right, I'm back. This is really exciting. I love this movie. I'm really looking forward to watching it with you and talking about it. I have my Back to the Future t-shirt on, one of many. I actually realized that I wore my other Back to the Future t-shirt during my last watch along to Ghostbusters. I didn't have a Ghostbusters t-shirt, so I picked the next best thing. But I also have this t-shirt, which is great, which I got from TeePublic. So let's get into it, shall we? This is my VHS of Back to the Future, which I've had since I was a kid, about the same amount of time that I've had my Ghostbusters VHS. And, it's a little worn. It's not quite, it's not a DVD. It's not a Blu-ray. Let's put it that way. It's not a 4K, but it'll do. And it's great. And I love it. And it's like one of my friends, So we're going to do show and tell a little bit later. I have some Back to the Future goodies, but for now, I'm going to put the movie in and we can get into it. So I'll let you know when the Universal logo comes up so you can join along at home if you so wish. Okay. Hope everybody's doing well. Say hi. Let me know you're here. Let me know what your favorite scene in Back to the Future is, or what you think of the trilogy, any memories you have of seeing Back to the Future. And studio logo. The great old Universal logo. I love it. So I've probably watched this movie 100 times, maybe more. As a kid, I watched it literally all the time. As soon as we got the VHS, I might have even also had it taped from TV. I did, actually, now that I think about it. And I watched it and watched it. It's a movie I never get sick of. Never get sick of. Look at that main title. That main title is so beautiful. It's such most main titles are just like the title in like a nice font, but this is such an iconic, amazing title treatment. And it's just it just tells you everything you need to know about this movie. It's got the arrow going back and the future is going forward. It's just so cool. So cool. No, I don't have the Laserdisc. So this opening sequence is showing us Doc. We don't know where we are. We're in Doc Brown's office and we're seeing clocks. The thing I love about this movie that I didn't even get probably the first 25 times I watched it as a kid was every ounce of this movie is, especially this opening, is about theme. The theme of time, and showing those clocks immediately brings us into the theme of time, right? We're not just seeing random stuff in Doc Brown's office. We're seeing clocks, right? We're seeing these inventions, the coffee maker, the alarm clock, the toaster. And then we pan over to the news and we just happen to see this clip about the missing plutonium. And the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long before it takes Marty to go back to 1955 is all set up and exposition, but not in a boring, lumbering, clumsy way, in like a really beautiful, I say beautiful, seamless way that's just fun to watch. Like, I loved seeing this can opener, this robotic can opener. As a kid in 1985, I was, I think, 7 when I saw it. and I'll talk about that in a minute. And just all of this tech was just the coolest stuff for me. Although I did think that the the dog food pouring was so gross, and the sound effect that they gave it as it landed in Einstein's food bowl was so gross. And so we do this big pan, and then we end up in Marty coming in the front door or the back door, wherever, and we're still laying the groundwork. We're still in exposition. He puts a skateboard down. He kicks it and it hits the case of plutonium under the bench. Like every ounce of this setup is setting up stuff that's going to pay off later. We see Marty plugging in his guitar, turning up the power, turning up all the volumes. You hear this buzz from the speakers, which is so cool. And all the needles like going to max. It's like, what's going to happen? He's going to play his guitar and it's going to be something amazing. And it's also great because we can get done with the credits, the film credits, in all of this compelling footage. I don't even notice that the credits are playing. And of course he plays his guitar and the speaker like blasts him back into the thing and everything falls and it's a big mess and everything. It's so great. And then it's the reveal. We haven't seen Marty's face. We see him for the first time as he sits up. I first saw Back to the Future when I was 7 in Vancouver, Canada, at the Oak Ridge Theater. My dad took me to see it. And I loved it. I immediately wanted to learn how to play the guitar. I wanted to learn how to skateboard. I wanted to be Marty McFly. And I just thought he was the coolest dude. And, I'm 7. He's 16. He didn't feel that much older than me. But he was just so cool. I love Michael J. Fox in this movie. Just every little thing about his performance, all the little looks, and we'll get into the Eric Stoltz of it all in a bit. But I actually learned a lot. Despite being a huge fan of this movie, I learned a lot from checking this book out. It just so happens that every watch along that I've done so far, Die Hard, Dazed and Confused, Ghostbusters, and Back to the Future, I've had books about the making of the movies. And that's really come in handy. I don't know that I'm going to have a book about the making of the next movie I do, but that's okay. It's nice to learn more about the movies that we love. So now he finds out from Doc that he's late for school because Doc set all of his clocks 25 minutes slow, right? And that's the tagline on the poster is he wasn't in time for his classes. Oh God, I got it. What is it? He wasn't in time for his classes. He wasn't at something. Okay, I got to look it up because it's so great. And then the payoff is, and then okay, whatever. I'm just gonna look it up. And then you get The Power of Love playing by Huey Lewis and the News. Huey Lewis contributed 2 songs to the soundtrack. The Power of Love, which is the most memorable and iconic, and Back in Time. And then, so this is another little setup thing of Marty. He likes to hang on to the backs of cars as he skateboards. And that gives us an opportunity to take a little tour through Hill Valley. And as we set up the geography of Hill Valley. So then he gets to school. He's late. We meet Jennifer. It's just, the movie wastes absolutely no time. There's no time where it's just like, la, 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 la. Every scene, every second is set up, setting things up that are going to pay off. Now we get Mr. Strickland, played by the great James Tolkien from, you might know him from Top Gun, from Masters of the Universe. He's just a great movie asshole. And he's perfect in this movie. So he's giving Marty shit. He's like, You're a slacker. You remind me of your dad when he was here. He was a slacker too. Putting this thing in our heads about George. Okay, the tagline for the poster was, he was never in time for his classes. He wasn't in time for his dinner. Then one day, he wasn't in his time at all. It's great. It's great. Him not being in time for dinner, that didn't really come into play in the movie, but it works well enough in this triptych of copy for this amazing poster. All right, so now we get him, Marty, auditioning for the dance, his band, and so he's playing his music, and they're playing really loud and energetically. And of course, you probably know this, but the judge in the glasses is Huey Lewis, the guy who gets on the megaphone and tells them they're too darn loud. That's Huey Lewis from Huey Lewis and the News. It is a little weird that Marty is playing Power of Love. It's always weird for me when the song that's composed for the movie is then also played in the movie. I said this about Ghostbusters 2 when Ray and Winston go to the birthday party and they play the Ghostbusters theme song, which doesn't make any sense. All right, so now he got rejected. I'm never going to get a chance to play in front of anybody, but you're good, Jennifer says. And I love the chemistry between Michael J. Fox and Claudia Wells as Jennifer. They really seem like a couple, and they're just great together. I haven't seen any footage of Eric Stoltz with Claudia Wells, so I don't know if they had good chemistry or not. But I love watching them together, and it's a bummer that Claudia Wells wasn't able to be in the sequels, because she's so good. She had to drop out because I think her mother was sick or something like that. Okay, so now we get the introduction of the 4x4, and Marty has these dreams of taking Jennifer to the lake, and she says, she talks about how, like, does your mom know about tomorrow night? He says, no, get out of town. My mom thinks I'm going camping with the guys. And then he says, my mother would freak out. It's like setting up mom and how mom was as a kid. I think the woman was born a nun, which sets us up to think like, oh, she's just this kind of stuck up bitch or whatever. But then we see her as played by Lea Thompson, and she's this vivacious teenage girl, which of course shocks Marty. Okay, so then they're interrupted in their kiss by the old woman, Save the Clock Tower Fund. She then tells 30 years ago, lightning struck the clock tower and the clock has run since. It's just nonstop exposition, but it doesn't feel like exposition. It never feels like exposition. It just feels like character and story and relationships. And, you know, even though Michael J. Fox didn't age that crazy between Back to the Future and Back to the Future 2, he definitely looks younger in this first movie. He definitely looks like 16, 17. And so then Jennifer writes her number on the flyer for Save the Clock Tower flyer, which he puts in his jacket, which he then uses later. It's like never stops. It never stops. Also, I love how the theater marquee in the background says Orgy American Style. And so then they put up this Lion Estates, I don't know, not arches, but this kind of gateway into this suburban neighborhood that Marty lives in. And then we just get more exposition. You know, what's really funny is, so this is it's a DVD and video guide because it's from 2006, but I don't know if you remember these video movie guides. They probably put them out for like 20 years, and we had them as a family. We had probably 10 of them. I don't even know if we still do. My mom might have gotten rid of them. I don't remember. But I always remember the little blurb that they wrote about Back to the Future because I never agreed with it. So here's what it is. I need my glasses for this. All right, so now we see we get introduced to George and Biff. So this is what it says. Michael J. Fox as a teenage, God, this, look at how small this type is. Look at how small this is. Michael J. Fox as a teenager who is zapped back in time by mad scientist Christopher Lloyd. Once there, Fox meets his parents as teenagers, an act that could result in disaster. The first 15 minutes of this film are pretty bad, but once Fox gets back to where he doesn't belong, it's terrific entertainment. Clearly, the people that wrote this book did not understand what the first 15 minutes of the movie were all about. Setting up the characters and the themes and the story. I always remember that. The first 15 minutes of this film are pretty bad. Like, fuck you guys. You don't know. This is one of the greatest movies ever made. Literally one of the greatest screenplays ever written. And I found out in the book that, it didn't start that way. It started with all these other crazy, wild ideas from Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis. And it evolved over many years. But it was just the fourth draft that was the shooting draft. Anyway, sorry, we just missed the exposition of Biff and being George's boss and needing the reports, and George being kind of forgetful and he's not very good at confrontations. We also get now the geography of Marty's house and Marty's living room and his relationship with his dad. His dad is just, a loser. And I love how he pours the peanut brittle into the bowl. He just pours way too much and it just like spills all over the place. And they're watching the honeymooners as they eat. Dave, the brother, works at McDonald's. I love the makeup for the actors, for Crispin Glover and Lea Thompson. And for the longest time as a kid, I couldn't tell if it was actually Lea Thompson and Crispin Glover or if they had hired actors that looked the same. My young brain didn't quite get it. But still, even now, the makeup and especially Lorraine and the hairstyle that they gave her. This is 1985, so there's still probably some leftover 70s clothes going on. And I love when Dave kisses George's head and then George does his laugh. Man, Crispin Glover is just amazing in this movie. Also, we get the exposition of Uncle Jailbird Joey. Okay, and now we're talking about girls kissing boys, girls parked. the way that Lorraine talks about boys is just so much like disgust. And then again, like literally every line. It was meant to be the way I met your father. The sister says, that was so stupid. Grandpa hit him with the car. Literally every line in this opening gets paid off. What were you doing in the tree, George? Bird watching? Setting us up for all the stuff that we're going to see once Marty goes back to 1955. It's really brilliant. I love this look on the sister's face. What's the sister's name? I've totally blanked. Wendy Jo Sperber is the actress. Dave and what's the sister's name, guys? No. So then Lorraine is talking about when they first had their first date, the thunderstorm. Your father kissed me for the very first time on that dance floor, right? So now we know that's when they knew that they were going to be together forever. So Linda McFly. I love George's laugh so much. The movie does not lose much being in the 4:3 VHS square TV format. It wasn't shot super widescreen like Ghostbusters was, where literally like half of the frame is what I saw as a kid on VHS watching Ghostbusters. And then you have Marty falling asleep in his clothes, Doc calling Marty, Marty's watch being kind of broken. He's like, he keeps shaking it. So I took skateboarding lessons as a kid because I wanted to do all the cool shit that Marty does in this movie. I wanted to be able to like send a skateboard under a car while I ran over the car and then landed on the skateboard on the other side. So apparently, but I took some lessons and then I gave it up because I was like, I'm not a skater. I mean, I have balance. I can ride a skateboard even still, but I was never into like doing the tricks or anything like that. Apparently Eric Stoltz was not comfortable. He was visibly not comfortable on a skateboard, and Michael J. Fox had capability on a skateboard, and so that's why they could shoot him in all these wide shots as he's skating to the mall, and then he skates up to Einstein. And now we have the reveal of the DeLorean as it backs out of the truck. I've heard some people ask if it's in this truck and it comes out, how did Doc get in the DeLorean to back it out? But maybe he got in the DeLorean, drove it into the truck, and then drove it out of the truck. I don't know, but I never thought about it until somebody asked that question. I also thought that Christopher Lloyd just looked that way. I was 7 when I saw this movie, so I never watched Taxi. So I didn't know that Christopher Lloyd did not look like Doc Brown. And the makeup and the hair is perfect. It's really perfect. It never feels like, I never question it. So now we got the DeLorean again. The DeLorean, so super fucking cool. And it wasn't even a car at first. It was a refrigerator. The time machine was a refrigerator. And it was called the Time Chamber, as I learned in the book. And at some point in the script, they were like, let's, do something cooler. Why don't we make it a car? And they looked at cars, and the DeLorean was a kind of a popular car at that time. So they made it a DeLorean. And that's how the time machine became the DeLorean. And then they went about the process of retrofitting it and taking parts out and putting things in that they found at a junkyard. And the time machine became what it is. It's amazing. So this big remote device doesn't actually remotely control the DeLorean. So they had to, show Doc doing the switches and things, and then actually have a driver, an invisible driver, drive the DeLorean. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious shit, is one of my favorite movie lines of all time. I learned that, so that's Einstein, or the dog playing Einstein. That's Einstein in the car when the wheels are revving. But once it takes off, they put a stuntman in a dog costume. And he drove the car. So I don't even know if you see Einstein in any of the well, you see him there. That's probably Einstein. Yeah, maybe for the wide. It never, I don't think it ever really. Oh, maybe for the shot of, the shot of the sparks flying. It was probably the stuntman in the dog outfit. And then you have this utterly iconic moment of the DeLorean exploding into and going back in time, and these flames going under their legs, and the look back, and the spinning license plate. Just everything about this moment is so great. I love it. Jesus Christ, Doc, you disintegrated Einstein. Calm down, Marty. I didn't disintegrate anything. Molecular structure of Einstein in the car completely intact. I know this movie line for line. We could do a whole watch along where I literally just say the lines as the movie's playing, but that's no fun. That's no fun. So now this is great. They do this little test with Einstein showing that the time machine actually works. And by making it and then also they didn't originally have the plutonium as the thing that powers the time machine. Originally it was like Marty accidentally spills Coca-Cola on the circuits and he gets zapped back in time like accidentally. Again, fortunately that changed. Everything that's great about this movie, aside from the skateboard chase throughout Hill Valley, throughout the town square, everything that's great about this movie was not there originally, and it just changed in the process of writing the film and producing the film. I love this when the DeLorean comes back and it's all icy and expels the steam, and Doc's look. All the looks are so great. So in the book, there's a great list of potential actors that they had considered for Doc Brown. I think Zemeckis liked Christopher Lloyd. But on this list of actors that they were considering, let's see here. Flux compression, flux capacitation unit. Oh yeah, this is great. In the book, there's the photo of Marty and his. Can you see it? Yeah. All right, so now we're explaining how the time circuits work. The flux capacitor. I'm getting to the list. November 5th, 1955. So what's great about that is that Doc just kind of puts the date in accidentally and then remembers that it was this seminal moment where he invented time travel or had the image of the flux capacitor. There's all these great illustrations of the time machine. The flux capacitor. I think I also, here it is. Oh yeah, so now he's talking about Old Man Peabody owned all of this. You see the sign on the mall is Twin Pines Mall. I saw something on Instagram that was like, something I never noticed in movies is that it starts off as Twin Pines Mall and becomes Lone Pine Mall. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. It's the fucking obvious. It's the sign in the fucking opening of the mall. So now we learn that Doc stole the plutonium from Libyans. Okay, so here's some actors that were considered for Doc Brown. Jeff Goldblum, John Lithgow, Joe Piscopo. Joe Piscopo was popular at the time from Saturday Night Live. Peter Boyle, Donald Sutherland, Dabney Coleman, Richard Mulligan, Ron Silver, John Hurd, Robin Williams, John Cleese, Tom Conti, Mandy Patinkin, Treat Williams, Mickey Rourke. That would have been weird. Gene Hackman, Alan Arkin, Charles Grodin, Gene Wilder, Harold Ramis, Albert Brooks, Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, James Woods, Danny DeVito, Bob Balaban, John Candy, Henry Winkler, Bill Cosby, and Eddie Murphy. That's fucking crazy. Yeah. and they landed on Chris Lloyd, which is perfect. Apparently, Johnny Depp auditioned for Marty. Charlie Sheen. Yeah, it's so great. I love hearing about movies and who almost made it or who was almost cast or who were in the top two. All right, so Marty's videotaping Doc as he's about to take off. When I was 15 or something, I was on a TV show. I was an actor. I was on a TV show in Vancouver called Kid Zone. I was on for a full season. It was like a kids variety show in Vancouver. And I made enough money. I made a lot of money for me at the time to buy myself a video camera. And this is like 1993, I think. And the video camera that I bought was similar to the video camera in Back to the Future. I wanted it to not be huge, but kind of medium sized, and have the viewfinder. And I had the viewfinder that I looked through, and it was cool. I used the shit out of that video camera, videoing in high school, video friends, doing school projects on the video camera. I took it to university, filmed all the parties and my friends. And all right, so the Libyans are here with their very scary looking machine guns. They shoot Doc. So that's crazy that they shoot Doc. And so now the gun backfires just as they're about to shoot Marty, obviously, because it has to. They're not going to shoot a kid. But they're trying to. So then Marty, in trying to escape, gets in the DeLorean. I love the truck like stops working too. It's so funny. Marty gets in the time machine. He's really just trying to get out of there. Why he doesn't drive out of the mall, I don't know. But we're not really meant to wonder why he doesn't drive out of the mall. He's just trying to get away from these guys. And he's driving like a badass. And this is kind of like our first kind of action sequence of the movie. The movie is not really an action movie, but there's enough moments of action. There's the skateboard chase. There's the whole finale sequence. There's these kind of set piece moments that, make it feel fun. And I think he's kind of forgotten. I think Marty, when he's driving around, he's ripping around this parking lot. He's kind of forgotten for a moment about the 88 miles per hour thing. He's just trying to go as fast as he can to get away from the Libyans. I love they pull out the rocket launcher. Like what the fuck? Yeah, let's see if you bastards can do 90. Another great line. And then the movie cuts to the time circuits, cuts to the speedometer, as we see Marty's realizing we're about to hit 88 miles per hour. He's about to crash into the photo station. And then bam, he crashes into the scarecrow and then into the barn. Okay, so here's a problem I have with this scene. So Marty drives into the barn and crashes, right? The hole makes a hole in the roof and the smoke comes out. But when the Peabodys open the barn doors, there's a wall behind the DeLorean. So why would there be a wall behind the DeLorean if he just crashed straight into the barn? It's okay. It's something I noticed after like the 50th viewing. So, you see like a little barn, but you would see a hole in the barn wall behind him. But you see clearly, like the barn wall is literally right there. I don't know what they were thinking, but it's okay. I love the way Marty falls. I love the way he lifts open the mask. Also, there's cows right next to him. He would have literally fucking crashed into the cows. Unless we're somehow meant to believe that like the DeLorean like slid and changed position. I don't know. Sorry about your barn. I love how Marty like just. I love all of this stuff. Just how Marty like stumbles. All of Michael J. Fox's physical comedy, physical acting is so great in this movie. The way he like trips over shit. He's like trying to put his pants on and falls and hits the floor. He's just such a great physical actor. And then he runs over the pine. So now it's not Twin Pines Mall anymore. It's Lone Pine. It's really funny. You would think in 30 years that Peabody would have grown another pine, but no biggie. No biggie. So now Marty's driving and he sees the sign for Lion Estates, and this is where it becomes not a dream. The score is by Alan Silvestri. So Zemeckis and Bob Gale met at USC, and they became fast friends. And they wrote and produced "I Want to Hold Your Hand," which was Zemeckis' directing debut, and "Used Cars," neither of which were hit movies. But they had met Steven Spielberg beforehand, and Spielberg executive produced both those movies. And he loved their writing and said, you know, whatever you have, like, bring it to me. And so Gale and Zemeckis brought him Back to the Future, and he loved this script and tried to help them get it made. But they had issues getting it made, or they were supposed to make it with Columbia, and then Columbia was like, we don't want to make this movie after the second draft of the script. So Zemeckis went on to direct Romancing the Stone for Fox. But a lot of the people that he worked on the movie with, cinematographer Dean Cundey, and composer Alan Silvestri, went on to make Back to the Future with him. And Silvestri, who's I think was like a protege of John Williams. I may be getting that wrong, but he composed this incredible, iconic, memorable score for Back to the Future, which reminds me in some ways of the great work of John Williams. So now you see Cattle Queen of Montana is on the marquee. And I love this score. I love the scores, all the scores that Alan Silvestri did for Back to the Future. He also did the scores for Forrest Gump, another Zemeckis movie, as well as all the Avengers movies. I didn't particularly love his score for Avengers at first. It grew on me, and I think his scores for Infinity War and Endgame are just perfect. Anyway, it says in the book that when they originally shot with Eric Stoltz, his outfit was not anachronistic to 1955. He kind of blended in. And they realized once they cast Michael J. Fox that they could get more humor out of the movie by putting him in this modern 1985 clothing, the vest and the jeans and the jean jacket and everything. So that was part of what happened when they cast Michael J. Fox. And according to the book, Eric Stoltz originally wore like green Converse. And when they hired Michael J. Fox, he went in for his costume fitting, and the costume designer, Deborah L. Scott, who went on to win an Oscar for Titanic, I think she's won Oscars for other things as well, she forgot to bring the shoes. So Zemeckis looked at Michael J. Fox's wardrobe, and he was wearing the Nike shoes, the white Nike shoes with the red swoosh that he wears in the movie. He was wearing those, and Zemeckis just said, let's go with those. But the problem is that the costume department needed like 12 pairs of shoes for the movie, but Nike had stopped making those shoes. So they only had the pair that Michael J. Fox was wearing. So they called Nike, they called this person and that person, and Nike specially made extra pairs of shoes for the movie because they had gone out of they had stopped being made. Okay, so Marty goes into the cafe. We get the cafe as like a major location. I love how his electric watch goes off and gets the attention of the cafe owner, who has probably never heard a sound like that. Literally, never heard a sound like that before, and it weirds him out. He tears the page out of the phone book, and then he's like, "Do you know where this address is? You know, that's the address of Doc Brown." I love a tab. I can't give you a tab. Why don't you order something? Give me a Pepsi free. All this little cute dialogue. Just give me something without any sugar. And then he happens to be sitting next to George McFly, his father. There is just not a single moment wasted. And it's so great. He turns around and we see Biff. And Biff is, young and strapping and tough looking and scary looking. And you see his crew, Billy Zane, Casey Simasco, and JJ something is the other guy. I forget his name. So now this conversation is a repeat of the conversation that George and Biff have in George's house, except this time it's about homework and not reports. The dork thinks he's going to drown. I love that. And so you see that Biff has kind of always, been a bully to George. He's always, George has always done what Biff said to do. And that's part of what Marty inadvertently interferes with and gets in the middle of. And that's George's arc. I love this shot of George in the foreground and Marty's face looking at him. And now you got Goldie Wilson, also established earlier in the movie in 1985. You get the little Goldie Wilson callback. Another thing I didn't get when I was a kid, when the shop owner says a colored mayor, I didn't get what that meant. I didn't know that colored was a way of talking about black people back then. I love this cutback, pan back, and the way that Marty drops the cup when he sees that George is gone is awesome. It's not a fast cut movie, but it moves fast. And now we get the payoff of George in the tree watching girls. And Marty is seeing his dad. He's like seeing who his dad really was. He's a peeping Tom. I love you get this shot of the girl in her window, changing. And then he falls. He falls out of the tree. He's supposed to get hit by the car. But Marty interferes and saves his dad, but then he gets knocked out by the car. So then Marty ends up going through what George went through. Lorraine falls in love with him. But the problem is, she's his mom. And there's no wasted characters. There's no wasted characters. There's no wasted moments. This scene is amazing because we hear Lorraine's voice. So we think, oh, well, maybe it was all a dream and he just is waking up back in 1985. Well, you're safe and sound now, back in good old 1955. Light comes on, Marty bounces up, and then you see young Lorraine. Beautiful Lea Thompson. Innocent, but very horny. I mean, Michael J. Fox does such an amazing job of being freaked out. Like, imagine if you saw your parents when they were teenagers. I mean, that was literally the whole conceit of this movie. They wanted, Zemeckis and Gale wanted to do a time travel movie, and then Gale went home to visit his parents or something, and was looking through a yearbook and thought, what would it be like if I met my parents as teenagers? And that was it. That was the idea. Kid goes back in time and meets his parents as teenagers. That was how they sold the movie to Universal or to Columbia, whoever. They were like, sold, done. I love how freaked out. No, fine, good, fine, good, fine. How he falls off the bed. And the staging of seeing Marty in his purple underwear, and then Lorraine in the door, in the reflection in the mirror. And then I love this. He just boom, just takes the whole joke about the vest that Marty's wearing and how everybody thinks it's a life preserver. She thinks he's in the Coast Guard. So then Marty is taken to the dinner table, and they're watching the Honeymooners. And that's the older. Oh yeah. So now we get the introduction of or the callback to Uncle Jailbird Joey, and he's in his crib. So Marty can do the "better get used to these bars, kid," which is a great payoff line. And so the older brother at the table is Jason Hervey, who played Wayne, Fred Savage's brother on The Wonder Years. And this is one of his early roles. And I love this. In 1955, they have a TV, and it's like a really big deal. It's like a huge deal. And they were like, do you have a TV? And he's like, yeah, we have two of them. And I love this moment because Marty still isn't used to being in 1955. He like catches himself when he says, we have two of them. And then he accidentally talks about the Honeymooners episode, and then catches himself like, oh, it saw it on a rerun. What's a rerun? You'll find out. I mean, it's just brilliant writing. So the casting of Michael J. Fox. So Zemeckis and Gale originally wanted Michael J. Fox, and he wasn't available because he was on Family Ties. And he would not be let out of his Family Ties schedule. So Family Ties was like the hugest comedy TV show at the time in America, probably second to like the Cosby Show or something, or Cheers. And it was just a huge hit. And Michael J. Fox was a huge star, and they wanted him for the movie, but they couldn't get him. And so they went through all these other actors, auditioning actors, and nobody was quite right. But Sid Sheinberg, who was the head of Universal, loved Eric Stoltz. Eric Stoltz had just done Mask for them. And so he thought Eric Stoltz would be perfect as Marty. Zemeckis didn't see it, but he had no other choice. He had to get the movie into production because Sheinberg wanted the movie to open summer of 1985. And this is like, early 84. Like they needed to get going. And so they cast Stoltz. Meanwhile, over in Family Ties land, Meredith Baxter Birney, who played the mom, was pregnant. And her pregnancy actually delayed filming of the show. So Michael J. Fox went and did Teen Wolf. Now, why didn't he go and do Back to the Future? Because the producer of Family Ties didn't show Michael J. Fox the script for Back to the Future because he didn't want him to get excited about Back to the Future and want to leave Family Ties. He was afraid he was going to leave. So he never even showed him the script for Back to the Future. So that's why Michael J. Fox did Teen Wolf and Back to the Future in the same year. And both ended up being released at the same time, in the same summer. So he did Teen Wolf. They cast Stoltz. They shot for 7 weeks with Stoltz. The whole time feeling like this guy isn't right. It just didn't feel right. The vibe, the way he was way too serious for Marty. He wasn't loose the way Michael J. Fox is. Sorry, I've totally skipped over the introduction of Doc, 1955 Doc. And him trying to use the helmet, the thing. And you see that Doc is like a frustrated scientist. But he's fallen because we see he's already fallen from the sink because we see the bandage on his forehead. I love all this scene of Marty trying to convince Doc that he actually is from the future. So anyway, they shot with Eric Stoltz. Eric Stoltz was not working out. And there's a lot of pictures of Stoltz. And he just doesn't look right. It just doesn't feel, even in these pictures, he doesn't look like Marty. This is Eric Stoltz. Sorry, that's Eric Stoltz, and that's his stunt double. And this is Stoltz in the scene, during the skateboard chase. So Zemeckis realized that Stoltz wasn't right. He wasn't working out. And they decided that they were going to replace him. But Sheinberg said, go get Michael J. Fox first. And they did. They got Michael J. Fox. And then they, on a lunch break, told Stoltz that they were letting him go on a lunch break. And that's it. He was gone. And then they informed the other actors what was happening. That another actor was coming in to replace him. This is after 7 weeks of shooting of a 12-week shoot. And they came back from lunch and they announced to everybody that Stoltz would not be returning and this new actor was coming in. And Michael J. Fox was not on a break from shooting Family Ties. Gary David Goldberg, the producer of Family Ties, agreed to let him shoot Back to the Future as long as it didn't interfere with Family Ties. So he would get in a van, be driven to the Family Ties set, shoot Family Ties, and then be brought back to Back to the Future and shoot Back to the Future. When he slept is unknown, but the guy was like 17, 18. I don't even know how old he was. So he had the energy and it was the perfect time. So Marty just showed Doc the DeLorean, the flux capacitor, that the image that he saw in his dreams, it actually came true. And now he's showing him the video. How Marty is able to connect the video camera to the TV is unexplained. And you just roll with it. You just roll with it. Portable television studio. So then they bring in Michael J. Fox. And they give him a new wardrobe, a different outfit. Actually, let me bring up the picture. There's a picture of Stoltz. Yeah, look at this picture of Stoltz. Think about if the movie was made and with this guy as Marty. I don't know. I can't even imagine it. That's why I often wondered, oh, what the hell is a gigawatt? Another great line. That's why I often wonder when we see a bad movie, there's so many decisions, so many things that can go wrong in the making of a movie. And I just sometimes wonder, like, well, what if the cast was different, or what if they got access to this location or something? So many decisions that could be made, meddling from studios, where bad movies could have ended up being good. And Back to the Future is a great movie that could have been bad. So now the Save the Clock Tower flyer that Marty saved comes back into play. That's another payoff to a setup. The only thing that's capable of generating 1.21 gigawatts is a bolt of lightning. Unfortunately, you never know when or where one might strike. We do now. Amazing writing, paying off the setup. So now Marty's gone back in time. He's met his parents. He's met Biff, sort of, seen Biff. He's met Doc. He's interacted with Lorraine's parents and family. He's discovered. Oh, here's the title. We're sending you back to the future. He's discovered that he can't get back to 1985 with plutonium. He's going to have to use the lightning that hits the clock tower in a few days. But now he's fucked with the time-space continuum by meddling inadvertently in his parents' lives. And now he has to fix that because his parents don't meet the way that they were supposed to. So now we see the visual illustration of this with the photograph and the slowly disappearing siblings from the photo. Erased from existence. So now there's this clock, literal clock time. There's a literal time thing going on that Marty has to reunite his parents before he goes back to 1985, or he will cease to exist. He will disappear from the photo. He will cease to exist. He will die. So there's a real high stakes scenario going on. So that redheaded guy who kicks George is what's his name? Courtney Gaines. And he's one of the weirdos in The Burbs, in the weirdo neighbor family. Another kind of great 80s character actor who popped up all the time. Now Marty is firmly in 1955 clothes. They're at the high school. We see what a dork George is, how he gets picked on, not just by Biff, but by everyone. So now he's trying to like fix things. He approaches George and tries to introduce him to Lorraine, and Lorraine's like, not a chance. She doesn't even look at him. She doesn't even notice George. She only sees Marty, who she calls Calvin because it says Calvin Klein on his underwear. You know, the amazing thing about, again, I haven't seen any of that. I've seen some of the Eric Stoltz footage, but I don't know what chemistry he had with the other actors. And the chemistry that Michael J. Fox has with Christopher Lloyd is great. With Crispin Glover, with Lea Thompson, is 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 perfect. Well, this is heavy. There's that word again, heavy. So so now it seems dire. How is Marty going to get George and Lorraine together? She doesn't even notice him. She's in love with Marty. So now we find out about the enchantment under the sea dance, which we heard in the story that Lorraine told at the dinner table, which is where they met and they kiss for the first time, which is what Marty is telling Doc. Another callback, another payoff. And apparently the line, "Are you telling me that my mother has got the hots for me?" became the hook that the marketing department used to sell the movie. And they made sure that that line was in all of the TV ads that ran, because, and it wasn't as much about the sci-fi elements. It was about this scenario. What if you went back in time and your mom had a crush on you instead of your dad? What would you do? It's great. It's great. Movie marketing back then wasn't quite as sophisticated as it is now. But you know, it worked. Back to the Future was a huge hit. Actually, one of the things I wanted to look up was how long it was in theaters for. How long was Back to the in theaters? So now so we're in the cafeteria. Marty's trying to get George to approach Lorraine, and George is like, no, she's with Biff. Clearly she's not with Biff. Biff is you know, basically sexually harassing her, and getting really rough with her. And then Marty steps in. And so it was Tom Wilson's idea to use the word butthead to describe people. And it was also his idea to do this make like a tree and leave, or get out of here thing, that gets paid off in a funny way in Back to the Future Part 2. But what's great about this is Biff doesn't know who Marty is. I don't even know if he knows his name. He just knows him as this kind of annoyance, this guy that's in the way of him hitting on Lorraine. And it's a very interesting thing. They changed that slightly in Back to the Future Part 2. Well, they changed it a lot in Back to the Future Part 2, that Biff becomes Marty's kind of mortal enemy. He is the antagonist of the movie, but in a different way than in most movies. And I love this, that in this second act, it's all about, you know, Marty trying to convince George to go and then follow through with this plan. And we keep referring back to the photo, and we see that Dave is disappearing. And so he shows up in his, you know, yellow hazmat suit or whatever it is, with the Walkman playing Van Halen. And is that an actual Van Halen song? That's something I've always wondered. It just sounds kind of like generic guitar. but I don't know Van Halen well enough to know if that's an actual Van Halen song. But um, copyrights and stuff did not exist in the same way in 1985 or 1984 when this movie was made as they do now. So that's why he can say, "My name is Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan." They didn't have to pay for those rights, I don't think. Uh, um, I mean, Vulcan is Star Trek, which is Paramount. Darth Vader is Star Wars, which was Fox, and this is a Universal movie. So chances are they didn't have to pay for those rights. They could just, you know, say those names. Um, so now George is freaked out, and this is the scenes leading up to the skateboard chase. And the way that the way it leads up to this is so perfect because now George is freaked out and he's convinced he has to ask Lorraine to the dance or he's going to get his brain melted. And what's so cool about this is that Marty is like leaning against the wall. He's drinking his Pepsi. He's so cool. And George is like, his shirt is untucked. He's so nervous and stupid. Um, So there's debate as to what George says here to Lorraine. I have posed this question on a Back to the Future group on Facebook, and there are differing interpretations of what George says to Lorraine. I think he says, "My destiny has popped me to you." Other people seem to think that he says, "My destiny has brought me to you." But you can clearly see from his lip movement that he's not saying brought, he's saying popped. Popped me to you. A friend of mine, Matt Leon, said that he thought that George says has pot me to you. That doesn't make any sense. Bob Gale, if you're out there, if you're watching, which you're totally not, can you please tell me what George says? Does he say, "My density has popped me to you"? So now he finally approaches Lorraine. It goes poorly. Lorraine sees him, but is kind of like, "Oh, aren't you cute? Get out of here." And now Biff is back. The jukebox turns off. He's bullying George again, and Marty interferes again. The sound effect of Biff falling on the floor is awesome. And the shot of the way that Biff stands up and you see Marty's eyes just over Biff's shoulder. The whole "what's that" punch thing probably would have worked in 1955. But it has the opposite effect of making Lorraine fall in love with Marty even more. So then he runs out, he finds these kids on their homemade scooters, pulls the top off, and immediately begins this skateboard chase. And it's great. And here we are, Biff and team are chasing after him. The score kicks in. Marty is skating through town trying to get away. I love this scene. I love it. Again, we have Marty clinging onto the back of a truck as he's getting away even faster. I love the sparks flying up from the skateboard. What a great shot as we see from inside the cafe of Marty outside skating on the back of the car, waving, and the shot ends up on Lorraine as she turns around and said, "He's an absolute dream." So then it's a great sequence, but then Marty gets momentarily kind of foiled. He runs into these people, flips over, and now Marty's at a disadvantage. Now Biff's at the advantage. He kind of rams into Marty. He's going to ram him into the manure. They're throwing bottles at him. And then we get this great stunt. and that's the stuntman uh, running over the car, and they crash into the manure. Amazing, amazing sequence. Apparently, the stuntman, that was the Marty stuntman, Michael's stuntman. That was the first thing that he did, was this over the car stunt. And then I love how he kicks off the skateboard and hands it to the kid. Like he just invented skateboarding, essentially. He invented skateboarding. And so then the scene ends with like a kind of cliffhanger. Like, who is that guy? Where does he live? And Lorraine saying, I'm going to find out. I don't know, but I'm going to find out, which leads us into the next scene. Every scene leads us into the next scene. Every scene builds on the next scene. No scene is a repetition of a previous scene. And now this is where Marty brings up the idea of telling Doc about what happened. And Doc's like, no, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear about it. No one should know too much about their own future. Back to the Future opened in the same summer as Rambo First Blood Part 2, Pale Rider, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, National Lampoon's European Vacation, The Goonies. It was a classic summer. On my Instagram account, and actually maybe on VHS Revolution Shorts, is a reel that I made about the summer of 1985. And you see just all of the classic movies: Explorers, Daryl, Follow That Bird, Cocoon. All these movies played. Or Cocoon the Return. Maybe it was Cocoon the Return. Volunteers, Summer Rental. All of these classic 80s movies opened that same summer as Back to the Future. Back to the Future was the biggest hit. I think it was the biggest hit of the year. The budget was like 14 million, and it made, according to the wiki, budget was 19 million and it made 398 million. I think that's worldwide. So now we have Doc with the model as we're going through the demonstration of what it's going to look like when the time machine races and we get the lightning hitting the clock tower, which sets us up for the ending. And I love that Doc is such a, science nerd that he went to the trouble of recreating the Hill Valley town square, and then apologized for it because it wasn't like to scale or perfect. I want to. Oh yeah, wait. I'm gonna do some show and tell after Lorraine shows up. So she followed Marty, and she shows up at the house. So now she complicates matters further by asking Marty to go as her date to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. Marty can't say no. He has to say yes because the movie has to get more complicated. This is my Doc. Uncle Doc Brown. I love all of like Michael J. Fox's like flustered. I love how he plays flustered. He's still cool even when he's flustered. I did not. This movie played in the theaters over the last 2 weeks for its 40th anniversary in IMAX, and you would think that I would have gone to see it. I had the chance to go see it, but I didn't. We decorated for Christmas instead, and my daughter loves this movie. We've seen it a bunch of times. We saw it on Broadway when we were in New York last year, and then the show. We saw the Back to the Future, the musical on Broadway with a friend who hadn't seen the movie. And then we came back from the show and watched Back to the Future again. So now Lorraine just asked him out and she's like, don't you think I'm beautiful? And so then we get to the next scene where Marty and George are doing laundry and Marty's trying to convince George that this plan is going to work. Let's do a little show and tell. Well, it's show. So I have Back to the Future 2 and 3 on VHS, of course. Obviously, I do. Two very, very good movies that are not quite the classics that Back to the Future is, but I still have a lot of affection for both of these movies. And I've always wondered on the poster for Back to the Future 3 why the 3 isn't gradient, or doesn't have the the fade, the sunset fade that part 2 does. The 3 is just yellow on the poster, but in the movie it's that same look. Actually, let me see so I have all 3 movies on VHS. These are the actual VHSs that I bought or that I owned, probably that my dad bought for me when I was a kid. And this trilogy has a very special place in my heart. I also have, do you remember movie novelizations? Well, I have Back to the Future 2 and Back to the Future 3. Now, the 3 in the novelization, the 3 is whatever that sunset gradient is. And I can tell you that I never read these novelizations. I think I started and then I was like, why? I'm just going to go watch the movies. But I still have them. I love the little setup of Marty telling George, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. So now we're at Enchantment Under the Sea Dance night. It's the night that the lightning's going to strike, that Marty has to fulfill this plan. I also have the soundtracks on cassette. Now, this is the tape. I still have the cassette. I don't know what happened in the course of my life, but I lost the case for Back to the Future. So I, of course, as a kid, cut out the letters and from a magazine and wrote on the spine. And so this has been my Back to the Future cassette soundtrack since I was a kid. And then I have the scores for 2 and 3. Maybe next year I'll do, because I guess it's like the 35th anniversary of Back to the Future Part 3 this year as well. Maybe next year I'll do Part 2 and Part 3 just to kind of complete the trilogy of watch-alongs. And then I also have the trilogy on Blu-ray, which has tons of great behind-the-scenes material, deleted scenes, and all kinds of fun stuff. I think it has that there was a TV special like The Secrets of Back to the Future or something, where they insinuated that the hoverboards were real and that Zemeckis says that parents groups didn't want them to be made, so they didn't get made or distributed, but we got our hands on some and put them in the movie. He was joking when he said that. He was being sarcastic, but for some reason they put it in that special like he was telling the truth. I, as a kid in 1989, how old was I then? 11 or 12, I think. Did not realize that. I still thought that hoverboards were real. And I took my skateboard that I had used for my skateboard lessons and unscrewed the wheels because I had some plan that I was going to turn my skateboard into a hoverboard, which once I took off the wheels, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a scientist. And then it just disappeared in the course of time. But I did try to find a hoverboard for a long, long time. A hoverboard like there is in Back to the Future 2, not like the hoverboards that exist today. Those aren't hoverboards. That's a hoverboard. Anyway, we'll save that conversation for Back to the Future 2. So that's my show and tell. I did get a model set of the DeLoreans, and I do have I think I finished the one for 3. It's in a box somewhere. That has a little chunk of railroad track and the rails and the car from part 3. I had finished that one, and then I had started the one for 2 with the wheels. So then here, Marty and Lorraine are in the car. She's drinking liquor. He's like shocked and tells her you should stop because you might regret it later in life. That's really funny. So then anybody drinks, he takes a swig, sees that she's smoking, and then does this great spit take. This might be the best spit take ever in a movie. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is there a better spit take than Marty's spit take in Back to the Future? I'm open. I'm open to having my mind changed. So then you have Marvin Berry and the Starlighters playing their music and that great red guitar. Like I said, I took guitar lessons because of this movie, and there was a guitar shop in my neighborhood called Rufus in Vancouver. And I used to go to Rufus all the time just to look at the guitars, because this is 1985, 86, 87. And guitar designs back then were super cool. I just loved looking at them. I thought they were so cool looking. And I took guitar lessons in the upstairs back office with Rufus himself, I believe. And I think I learned how to play Every Breath You Take. And then also stopped the lessons once I realized I was not going to be able to play Johnny Be Good like Marty in like 3 weeks. I kind of wish I had stuck with it. I could play the guitar. I would play the guitar, be able to play the guitar now. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a very important moment where Lorraine kisses Marty, and it does not go well. And it's great that she kisses him and it doesn't go well, because, and she says, when I kiss you, it's like I'm kissing my brother, because now she's had this moment where she's now not in love with Marty. And that's exactly the moment where Biff shows up and George can step in and save the day. And what's great about Biff is he starts off as just kind of like, he's like a bully, but he's like relatively harmless in the first scene. And as the movie goes on, he becomes more and more violent and scary, to the point where now he's like punching Marty. He's getting in the car to essentially rape Lorraine, right? And it's intense. The stakes are very, very high. They throw Marty in the trunk of what turns out to be Marvin's car. I love when they get out of the car and the pot smoke just wafts out. I didn't know what that was at the time, but I love that. Who are you calling a spook, Peckerwood? Reefer addicts. I didn't know that reefer addicts were 2 words. I thought it was, I don't want to mess with no reefer addicts. Like reefer addicts was 1 word. I didn't know what that meant. And then it's great. Marty's locked in the trunk. They need to pry him out. Marvin hurts his hand, so Marty has to take over. But before we get there, we get George following through with the plan. He was told they're going to be struggling, and he's going to come up and say, hey, you get your damn hands off her. Except instead of Marty, it's Biff. And instead of a fake plan, it's fucking real now. George has a decision to make. Is he going to stand up to Biff and save Lorraine, or is he going to back off? And his hand is shaking. and he tries punching Biff, and not a chance. And Biff has George. He's going to teach George a lesson. The way that this movie moves back and forth between Marty and George is great. Marty's freaking out because he has to get back. And it's the look of fear on Lorraine's face and the, and the laughing on Biff's face that causes George to become a hero in that moment. And what does he do? He hauls off and fucking punches Biff and knocks him out. There you go. Amazing. Amazing. And look at that. George becomes the hero. Lorraine is like in love with him. God, it's a great moment. And she's like in love with him now. And now history has been changed. Not fully yet, because they haven't kissed on the dance floor. But now we're at Doc, and the time is getting very, very close. I got one other thing. I have this commemorative cup from Back to the Future, the musical that we saw last year. This is a great payoff right now. You got to play, because if they can't dance, they can't kiss, and then I'm history. The dance is over unless you know someone who can play the guitar. And then great. This amazing payoff to Marty playing the guitar. In front of people. But time is running out. George has to kiss Lorraine. So then we're back to Courtney Gaines stepping in, taking Lorraine away from George. Marty is disappearing. He's having trouble playing the guitar. This is not good. This is not good. This is like... This is really bad. Everything depends on George kissing Lorraine. Now, why Marty is entirely disappearing in the picture when his siblings disappeared in sections, I don't know, but it really doesn't matter. You get the VFX shot of his hand disappearing. And you get the this great moment where he takes her face in his hands. And, you know, Crispin Glover, for all of his total weirdness, is a good-looking guy. And he looks like a kid in the 50s. So he kisses Lorraine, saves the day. The siblings are restored in the photo, and all is well. Now all Marty has to do is get back to 1985 and the movie's over. But the movie still has some surprises in store. I guess you could say that the Johnny B. Good scene is the only scene that isn't really necessary, but it pays off a character bit for Marty, which is that he never got to rock out at a dance playing with the band, and now he gets to. And he plays Johnny B. Good and essentially introduces rock and roll to teens in the 50s. And by this point, the movie has really earned the opportunity to have a really fun, you could almost call this like an action scene, an action sequence in a way. It's not violent action, uh, but it is. It's the energy kicks up a notch. It's really fun. And Michael J. Fox gets to show off his guitar playing skills, his physicality on the guitar. And it's just like a great moment that makes you smile. That's not his singing voice. Um, that's not Michael J. Fox actually singing. It's somebody else. Okay, so there's an overhead shot of a guy on the ground snapping his fingers. And I always thought that it was Courtney Gaines who got shoved over, but it's not. It's not Courtney Gaines. It's another actor in a different suit. So I don't know what's going on there. I've never really gotten that answer. Maybe I will get that answer from this book. But also Bob Gale. There's a great podcast called Script Apart, and Bob Gale made appearances on Script Apart to talk about Back to the Future, and I think he also did Back to the Future 2 and 3. And when they made this movie, they weren't intending for there to be a sequel. It was Sid Sheinberg who said, I want to do a Back to the Future sequel. And then they had to kind of come up with the stories for part 2 and part 3, which they shot either at the same time or one after the other. So now you see Marty is really going crazy with the guitar playing now. And he's in his own world. The band is basically like stopped playing. And I love this where he kind of slides into frame as he kind of wakes up from his, yeah. And you get Strickland. Everybody's stopped dancing because they don't even know what to do to that kind of music. And you get the great line, you guys aren't ready for that yet, but your kids are going to love it. So now we have our final scene with young Marty, with Marty and young George and Lorraine. So people always ask, why don't George and Lorraine recognize that their son is the same guy that they met in 1955? And I think the answer to that is pretty obvious. I mean, they knew this guy for like 1 week, maybe 1 week. And then 30 years passed. If I think back to 30 years, 1995, I can't tell you that I remember every single person that I went to high school with, especially not someone who may or may not have been there for a week. So it seems perfectly plausible that they would grow up, they would get married, have kids, and not even remember what Marty looked like, this kid Marty that they met. Now, they would potentially tell their kids a story about a kid named Marty that they met, but it's fine. Somebody could do fan fiction about that. So Marty races back to Doc. They're running out of time. I always loved the pink reflection on the back of the DeLorean from the lights. So they're running out of time. Marty has to get in the car. He has to go to the end of the street. He has to put the pole in and get to the clock tower when the lightning strikes in time. But something gets in the way. Well, we're not there yet. But I love this moment. So Doc is essentially reiterating what the plan is. When the alarm goes off, you hit the gas. He's timed everything perfectly. And then he gets out and he reaches into his pocket and he finds the letter that Marty wrote informing Doc about what happens on that day in 1985, trying to save his life. And he gives him this great hug. Doc doesn't even really know what the hug is about, but it's really the last time that Marty's going to be able to hug Doc, his friend. And then it's kind of like another setup thing that gets paid off at the end of the movie, which is Doc seeing the letter and ripping the letter up. But Marty doesn't have time to argue with him. He's got to go. It's information about the future. I refuse to accept the responsibility. Oh yeah, so then what happens? So then the tree branch breaks and falls, separating the plug that's connecting the wire that's tied between the two lampposts. So if lightning strikes, it won't be able to run down, and so it's like another. I guess it's kind of the all is lost moment. Every movie in the third act has an all is lost moment where it seems like all is lost. They can't possibly fulfill their plan because something is standing in the way. And so Doc goes up. And they get, he is able to, Marty's able to like send the other part of the cable up to him. The Alan Silvestri score here is so great. So they were originally planning on shooting in town in California, in Burbank. And some locations are actual locations. Doc's house is an actual location. But they realized that they could have a lot more what's the word? I don't remember what the word is. They could have a lot more ease if they shot on the Universal back lot. So this clock tower, the diner, the town square, that's all the Universal back lot that they changed to be Hill Valley Town Square, which is why they change it again for part 2 and part 3. The way that Michael J. Fox slides across the hood to get to the DeLorean is so cool. I definitely slid over my bed or something as a kid, or over tables or things, trying to be as cool as Marty. But I never was. I love this moment with Doc when he's literally on the edge of the clock tower. There's thunder, there's lightning, and he steps, and this huge piece of cement breaks off, and then he's hanging there. We're not there yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Marty puts the pole into the DeLorean. The kind of like explanation of the technology in this movie is like just good enough. Like how this pole goes directly into the flux capacitor is not really clear, but it's clear enough. It's clear enough. He plugs it in, it goes into the flux capacitor. When the lightning strikes and the hook hits the cable. It's going to go into the capacitor and send him back to the future because it's going to give the time machine the 1.21 gigawatts it needs. So now, in keeping with vehicles breaking down, the DeLorean stops working just when Marty needs it to work. Maybe this is the all is lost moment. I don't know. The car is broken down. Doc is like hanging there. How is he possibly going to get the cable connected? And this image was deliberately meant to invoke the Charlie Chaplin movie. Was it Charlie Chaplin? Hold on. Is it Charlie Chaplin or is it I think it's Charlie Chaplin, right? It says in the book. There's a Chaplin movie where he hangs from a clock tower. Yeah. Harold Lloyd. Okay, it occurred to us we could put a clock on the pediment of the courthouse. Once we had determined it was going to be a clock tower, it made perfect sense. It's all about time. At some point, we also realized the allusion to Harold Lloyd's Safety Last. And when we told Steven Spielberg about it, he immediately made that association. It was Harold Lloyd then, and it's Christopher Lloyd, and they're both going to be hanging on clocks. It's perfect. There you go. So then Marty, in frustration, hits the steering wheel with his head, kicking the DeLorean into gear. He's able to hit the metal, hit the pedal, the gas, and the DeLorean takes off. But Doc thinks he's saved the day, but now because of that fallen branch, it's fucking blocked the cable from, so it doesn't have as much give. So then Doc has to pull the cable apart. It's literally like whatever could go wrong goes wrong. And the movie keeps upping the stakes. I mean, Marty is literally like speeding towards the clock tower. Doc is gonna literally run out of time. He has to figure this out. He has to figure out what to do. It really feels like Doc's like, I mean, look, the car is in the distance. It feels like Doc isn't going to be able to figure this out. So he plugs the thing in, and then somehow using cable, he's able to slide down, rappel down, and get to the. It's never been very clear to me how far away Marty actually is from the clock tower and how far how fast he's driving, but that's okay. The time circuits start fluxing. Doc gets to the other cable and plugs it in just as the lightning hits the clock tower in this spectacular wide shot as you see the lightning go down the cable and hits the DeLorean and sends Marty back to 1985. How Doc doesn't get like utterly electrocuted and dead from that is still a mystery to me, but again, it's just one of those movie things that you go with. Maybe because he's wearing gloves. Maybe that's why. And then you have this great transition where Doc runs down the row of flames and screams in triumph. And then he looks up and they do this transition where we're now in 1985. You see this homeless guy with the newspapers, and you have to see the newspapers because the newspapers, they need something to fly away when the DeLorean comes back to 1985. And then he crashes into the movie theater, and it's now Assembly of Christ. I'm not familiar with Assembly of Christ, but at least it's not Orgy American style. So now the car really is broken down. There's really nothing he can do. It's covered in ice. And who drives by but the Libyans? So then he has to hoof it to the mall. So this book also covers Back to the Future 2. He sees Doc get shot. So he basically witnesses this thing that he experienced. He watches it happen, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. And then part 3. Pretty great. I look forward to reading it in full. And then he basically watches the DeLorean chase from afar as the time loop kind of closes. And he sees the Libyans crash into the photo station and die. I don't know if they're dead. They're just unconscious. So now this is the payoff from that moment that we saw in the beginning where Doc gets killed, but it's also the payoff of the letter. It's never really explained, nor should it be, how Doc and Marty became best friends. It's an interesting movie. It's like the only teen movie that I know of where the lead character doesn't have like a group of friends his age. Like his best friend is this old guy and nobody questions it. The movie really doesn't even have time to question it. It doesn't give him a group of friends that are like, oh, what are you hanging around Doc Brown for? It's just like, nope, Doc Brown, best friend, moving on. Let's go. So he shows him the letter. It's all taped up. I figured, what the hell? And then Marty returns home. And this is like basically the denouement, the resolution to the story. We find out Doc's going 30 years into the future, into 2015. And there's something I want to read from. I want to read Christopher Lloyd's preface that he writes for the book, but I'm going to read that when the movie's over. Boy, that sound effect! Whoever did the sound design for this movie, that sound effect of the time machine disappearing or going back in time is perfect. That sound is so memorable. So here he is. He's back in bed. He's in his clothes, the same clothes that he was wearing. He's overslept again. Here's the other Huey Lewis song, Back in Time. And he thinks maybe it was a nightmare. I mean, I've had dreams that I feel like are real while I'm having them, and then I wake up and only to realize that was a dream. But now, this little bit where he double takes and sees the living room, he realizes things have changed now. He did change the future. His house is different. His brother and sister are different. His brother is wearing a suit. I always wear a suit to the office. His sister is done up. They're eating like a nice, healthy meal. And then his parents come in, and his parents look great and healthy, and they're in love. the movie never stops paying off things that it sets up. Marty falls off the chair. You know, they're in shape, they're in love, they're, you know, they live a great life now. And they don't know any different. Mom trusts Jennifer. You know, I think a really interesting sequel to this movie would have been Marty getting used to the new 1985. Oh yeah, you see Biff. Biff is now working for George, and he's clearly in the inferior position. He's got this truck behind him. Biff's auto detailing. You know, Biff never amounted to anything in life, and George did. And it's this great role reversal. But yeah, I'd like to see that Back to the Future too, where Marty gets used to all the things that are different now that he changed things in the past. I love how Biff is the dork now. Yeah. Like I've always told you, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And then there's the payoff of the Toyota 4Runner, the truck. Sitting there in the garage, all waxed up. And then who comes by but Jennifer? Marty, you acting like you haven't seen me in a week. Okay. That's corny, but it's okay. We'll go with it. And again, the old age makeup for George and Lorraine is great. It's different from what they were made up as in the earlier 1985, but they still look real. And now here comes Doc back from 2015 wearing future clothes. I always hated in Back to the Future 2 how they recreated this scene with Elizabeth Shue. They had to, but the line readings are different. They're not the same, and that always bothered me about part 2. But what happens to us in the future? Would it become assholes or something? I love it. He's wearing this shirt, this clear tie, all this kind of like future clothes, you know, to make him look really different. Yeah, you catch when the DeLorean backs up, you see the reflection in the license plate of the camera. I always notice that. So then the DeLorean takes off and the wheels fold in and it's flying now, and holy shit, and then it flies in the camera, and they added "to be continued" to the VHS release. The original theatrical release did not say "to be continued." The DeLorean flew into camera, and that was it. And I think that that's how it is in the digital releases and the DVD, Blu-ray. They restored it to the original version, but the VHS release still has the "to be continued." And then there you go. We're in the end credits. Oh. Art director Todd Hollowell, he went on to do, I think, almost every Ron Howard movie. He worked on Apollo 13. So there you go. Get back in time. You know, the movie started with Huey Lewis and it ends with Huey Lewis. And I mean, my God, this movie is just Just amazing. Just amazing. You think about all the shitty movies out there and everything that they do wrong. And one of the things that they do wrong is just not setting up and paying off things. Not setting up and paying off things. I mean, I just watched Catch Me If You Can the other night. It's one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite Spielberg movies. You know, after you get through Jaws, E.T., Close Encounters, Raiders, I think Catch Me If You Can might be my fifth favorite Spielberg movie. Saving Private Ryan, Jurassic Park. You know, but it's one of my favorites. And Catch Me If You Can is another movie where it's all set up and payoff, set up and payoff, set up and payoff. And that's what audiences like, whether we really know it or not. It's very it makes movie watching very satisfying when we see things get paid off. So I want to read this preface by Christopher Lloyd from this book. I'm not a writer. Actually, I'm not even sure if I've ever played a writer. But I know that one rule of writing is to grab the reader with something interesting right away. So here's a grabber. After I read Back to the Future the first time, I threw the script in the trash. I know what you're thinking. Great Scott! You'll find the story of why I retrieved that script later in this book, so I won't tell it here. But I often wonder how my life and career would have turned out if I hadn't retrieved it. What if I hadn't rethought that decision? What if I hadn't taken the meeting with Bob Zemeckis and gotten a sense of the wacky movie he intended to make? What if I hadn't said yes? One thing is certain. I wouldn't be writing this preface. You might be reading something by Jeff Goldblum or John Lithgow. I probably wouldn't have been cast as Judge Doom in Zemeckis' Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or have been cast in a lot of other films. I wouldn't have gone to a lot of great parties at Bob Gale's house. Who knows, I might have gone back to the theater and chucked my entire film career. It was actually something I was considering at the time. Quite an alternate timeline, and one I'm blessed to not be living in. We all think about these what if sort of things. What if I'd said yes, or instead of no? What if I'd gone to school in Illinois instead of Texas? What if I had married Pat instead of Adrian? It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, or what country you live in. There are times you lie in bed at night and replay the decisions you made that day and wonder, what if? To me, that's one of the reasons that the Back to the Future movies are so compelling. They not only ask those questions, they answer them. The trilogy presents alternate timelines, and we actually get to see the results. We see what happens if George stands up to Biff. We see what happens if Biff marries Lorraine. We see what happens to Marty's future if he crashes into the Rolls Royce. And we get to see what happens when Doc rescues Clara. Making a movie is all about making decisions. The writer has to decide what to put on the page. The director has to decide where to put the camera and who can best play a part. The actor has to decide how to deliver the lines. The studio has to decide how much money they'll spend. Some of these decisions have little impact. These movies would have been just as good if I'd been named Doc Green instead of Doc Brown, or if Marty's hoverboard had been purple instead of pink. Other decisions have the power to alter the space-time continuum. What if Bob Zemeckis hadn't been bold enough to replace Eric Stoltz with Michael J. Fox? I doubt this book would even exist. What if? Two words that can fire up the imagination and send us into worlds of endless possibilities. That's the power of film and the power of Back to the Future. So there you go. Thanks to everybody who joined this watch along. It was great. I absolutely love and adore this movie. I never get sick of it. It's just an incredible feat. It's amazing reading this book that they shot with Eric Stoltz for as long as they did, um, and that that they not only had the boldness to fire him, but were able to get Michael J. Fox, and that Michael J. Fox is forever known as Marty McFly, and to a degree Alex P. Keaton, but the goodwill that Michael J. Fox, the Back to the Future gave Michael J. Fox is just amazing. So that's it. That's it for my Back to the Future watch along. Thanks for joining. I'm going to be doing another watch along in December, Christmas themed. Haven't quite decided on the movie, but I'll let you know. So hope everybody has a good night and a great Thanksgiving. See you later.